He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine.
That's the
And he does every time we go. Yeah, that's. Yes, exactly. But yeah, I look at it. It's not. Okay, but.
No, 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 but it's like,
Yeah, especially when it's a specific person, like everybody else doesn't have. So, anyway. Here's.
at 6 o'clock.
Good evening, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We're not gonna have the invocation today, but we are gonna do the pledge of allegiance. Never be stand. Ready to salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible.
And we're gonna move on to roll call. Here. Here. George. Yeah. Councilmember Story.
Present.
Councilmember Sanchez. Here. Councilmember Nate is absent. We're gonna go on to approval of the agenda. We're having a meeting.
Motion. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those aye?
Aye.
Order.
We're gonna move on to public comment. The public comment is invited to comment on any subject matter under the jurisdiction of Lincoln City Council. Please note that the speakers that wish to comment on a regular item or a public hearing on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to speak when public comment for that item is requested by the mayor. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person with 30 minutes per total comment period, unless otherwise indicated by the mayor. The public may also choose to submit a comment before the meeting via email. Public comments received via email will be distributed to the council prior to the start of the meeting and incorporated into the official minutes. However, they will not be read aloud. Under state law, matters presented under the public comment cannot be acted upon the council at this time. At this time, do you have any public comments?
I have 3 items, but so I'm Dr. Henry Villanueva, hello everyone, and CEO of One. So thank you for that. I'm going to share with you some thoughts about things that I've observed. So you all remember last August when we did the groundbreaking for baseball diamond? All bowl, the green bowl, wasn't it? When I was there that day, I walked hot as hell. When I walked over. And what I did was I went to go see the park next door, Cat Cove Park, right? And Cat Cove Park was in total disarray. Neglected is the word that I would use. Overgrown trees, overbrush, dry grass, dirt on top of the awning, etc., etc., etc. So I went to the then, Public Works interim person and asked, what can we do about this? And that person told me, it's part of the next process. Well, that's great, but when you have the funding, we don't have it. So when we get funding, we'll take a look. But I'll tell you what he said, I'm gonna try to take a look at this, try to see what we can do. He left. And then we got a new Public Works person. In between all of that, I took the previous city manager and said, let's go get on the swings. Oh, it don't work. They're broken. And he said, I know, this is neglected, something about it, I'm gonna get on it, I promise. That's all along about, was it September? All along about January of 25, all that happened. All about January 25, remember the current Public Works director, and said, we're gonna try to do our best, I promise we're gonna look at it, I promise we're gonna chip away at it, but we got this reason and that reason and this excuse and that excuse. And so what came from that is 4 trees got trimmed. And the way those trees were trimmed, they'll never bear shade again, or at least not in our lifetime. I mean, they just whacked the hell up. And then it stopped. And I would periodically ask, what are we out with this? And finally, with some frustration, said, look, we're doing the best we can. We'll get you when we can. That's not a quote, that's just summarization. So then I met with one of you, with the city councilman, I said, let's get out there. And then I got the thing about, well, you know what, it's always been like this. It's always been neglected, like that was okay, right? And said, but I'm gonna look at this. There's nothing to still happen. So then a few days ago, I met with your current city manager, which was my second time speaking to him, and said, it will happen over months, but it will happen. What I'm bringing to you tonight regarding that is the folks on that area of town, or the forest part of town, deserve clean park. They deserve the bushes to be trimmed. They deserve the lights to work correctly. They deserve to have, you minutes up there?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, my point is, bring it to your attention again so that you are aware that the park hasn't been fixed and it's still in shambles. And those are your community. Inclusion. When I was talking to folks about inclusion, just doesn't seem to stick. So the second thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was,
It's 3 minutes.
I've got a second item.
It's
Totally different.
only 3 minutes public comment.
Well, that's what we should.
Do we have any more public comments?
My name is Susan, City Lady. I noticed on the warrant list that we had an $18,000 payment to Canon Financial Services. It appears to be for the copiers that we have, and it had some related late payments. So I was just so I was just curious, when does that contract expire? It just seems like it is a lot to the copiers. And on item number 9.4, as a city of 13,000 residents, people need to be thoughtful about how we allocate our staffing resources. Rather than expanding the administrative role, we maybe want to consider prioritizing non-classified positions that directly support parks, the street and the water departments. That's where the community will see the most benefits. So, assuming the staffing update has already been discussed, it is important that we stay up to date, especially since it is on. But I just wanted to make this point to the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Do we have any more public comments? Okay. Yeah. Henry, go ahead and come up and pick your most important one. I know they're all important, but
Give up my $10 for
no, I agree.
Not long ago, I came to Fort Worth to actually consider being a sanctuary city. And I'm told that after discussion, you all decided not to, which was really kind of a sad commentary because we need to take our community. And now how it's expanded to a place where it doesn't matter if you're citizen or not, you're being detained and arrested, all over everything there. I know that ICE, is now contacting cities to join in a partnership. It's called Contract 287. And what they do is put a few pockets of gold in your pocket, a few points of gold in your pocket, to contract with them to start arresting people who take firearms. Or in some larger cities, you can actually put them into jail. It's a rather lucrative contract. I want to encourage you not to get involved with it. We need to think of our community. We need to think of their safety. Think of their family. Think of their grandfather. Think of many people. And if they were here today, if she were here today, they would be busted. Okay? So I wanted to say that. And it's really quick, so just please pay attention. And in closing, I'm going to tell you that also some time ago I came and asked a question about the beautiful mural we have for the 9/11 and how it's just there, we're just here. And it was told at that time that we had found an artist that could do it and for a reasonable price, and then never again. I think that was something August or September. But I'd like you to rethink that because it reminds me of Back to the Future movie, where as time passes on, you start disappearing from the pictures. And soon that thing will disappear. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comments? At this time, public comment is closed. We'll move on to council report. Anybody wish to report?
Good evening, everybody. Want to start with some photos. Welcome, thank you, staff and residents. I appreciate you for coming. A few things to report. I was able to participate in the civil service 5K walk, I did a 5K post fund in Toronto, and the rest of our recreation department putting that on. It's great to honor those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for us to have our freedom. And I love it. It's something that's going on for the last 5 years, so I really appreciate the best service event we have. And I also did participate in East Korea ground sustainment. We're trying to make sure that we're up to par with all regulations that the state is throwing at us, and trying to find a way to work with partners in the West have a different perspective about conservation and allocation. So we're working towards finding a solution to that. I was also able to participate in necessities or attend necessities where we honored some of our brightest athletes, student athletes. I'm very proud to say that my daughter got into 17. Well, it's great because for the first time in the history of my family, I have a cardinal here. My nephew Jose Cortez. So congratulations to all the student athletes that received an award, and after graduation, all of them. I was also able to attend the finals for the Soccer Association, which this year Faustino was able to make 500 kids part of the league. I think it's the largest league in my town. So shout out to him and congratulations to all of who participated. All the people that won. It was exciting finals, so it's always a good time. And then last year I was able to attend something outside of the community, but I just wanted to report that Thomasville Memorial Day Parade. It was a fun time. It's great. I didn't get to see the Orange Blossom Parade, but it was nice to see that. Thomasville is a nice example of what our community is. I like to think that there's a friendly rivalry there. Continue to improve our parades and our events, and continue to compete with funds on the rest of the towns that are golf course size, and look forward to our yeah, it's been an exciting couple of weeks. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everything's staying cool. The only thing I did was a military banner ceremony. Very touching, every single time. While we attended, it was a little hot, all of us there. Pretty much, that's it. I don't remember the total amount. What was the total?
That was like what we added, so we had a total. Yeah, they see that.
Oh.
Thank you. I'll make mine fast. I attended the TCAG and TCRTA. There were some things that we went over, but nothing really concerned with Lindsay. I always wanted to make sure that our transportation funds are still there, so they're still there. I did the LHS SB Awards. That was my first one. It was super cool. I'm gonna piggyback off of Joe. That was really cool. Just to watch all of the athletes, you know, they really do it like the SB, so it was cool. I also attended the military banner ceremony. I did the city soccer, which people from out of town, did you know people from Porterville, Stroudsburg were playing in the Newsweek? So it was super cool to see Faustino bring in people from out of town for our soccer league. I also attended my son's Pinocchio play. So cute, so cute. Councilman Nave's Nave daughters played in it, so it was really cool to see them. They were super excited that I showed up. Lastly, I guess, you know, it's mental health awareness month and we're getting ready to end, so I just want to say I take care of my mental health. I did attend the Kendrick Lamar and Caesar concert, so it was super cool and totally off the record, but take care of your mental health because I did. You take care of my mental health. So, but that's it. That's all I have to report. Thank you. We're gonna go on to the city manager.
Madam Mayor and Council, we continue to have, some decent productive things going on since our last council meeting. One thing that I didn't mention at the last council meeting, but, the California Department of Finance comes out with, annual population estimates. And so, city of Lindsay, and this is taken a snapshot on January 1st. So, you know, it's an estimate, it's not exact, it's not like a census that goes around and does a better count, but it's 12,725, and that is actually a loss of 9 people from their estimate from 2024. So what happened to the 9 people, we're not sure. We're on the case to look for them. But so yeah, that's the estimate. And other tidbit from that, there's 483 cities in California. And we are ranked 346 out of that. So there's definitely quite a few smaller cities than we are, but we're definitely on the smaller side as far as cities go in California. So it's good perspective. The governor's come out with the May revise earlier in the month. There's a lot going on in Washington. Budget. I think from the city standpoint, more so from the standpoint of how it impacts our budget, what it looks like for our residents. And so a lot of the discussion is over Medi-Cal eligibility, some additional work requirements, and how that possibly impacts our residents. I don't know that we'll really have a clear picture until things take place and what that ultimately looks like. It's still going to at the federal level. As the budget reconciliation went to the Senate from the House. And on the May revise from the state level, in addition to the impacts to Medi-Cal possibly, there's been quite a bit has been taken away from transit funding. Again, that won't necessarily impact us directly, but our partnership with TCRTA could have some impact there and some other type of you know, we're going to be discussing later on our transit center. That is not impacted this program, so there won't be impact to that. That funding is secured as local Those dollars are also provided for the cross out some other, so that fund is secure. So those are things we do have, an economic development committee meeting that's scheduled for this Thursday at 3 o'clock. The Center for Public last week sent out a notice this morning. So that will go here at the chamber at 3 o'clock on Thursday. For discussion, talk about where we go and what doing. For my benefit, gas and some of the discussions are out public. So that's going forward. I'm still working on the budget. That's always fun. We have been talking about the olive oil improvements, and that's continuing to move forward on time. Four Creeks has been great in managing that project. QK has been extremely helpful in pushing that as well, along with city staff and city services. It's been a huge team effort. Finance department's gotten involved, making sure we're getting reimbursements covered through the various grants. And we believe that under that. So the team has been looking at options as far as how to make sure we can utilize those dollars. There's things that weren't included in the initial budget, or things like how to maintain the facility and getting some equipment. So we're looking for that and making some of those extra things not being $6. So it's great that we're spending less than what we were anticipated, but it's also great that we can try to maximize fund for other parts, including installing new playground equipment at Food Park that we have on site, and possibly looking at additional types of stuff. So, but all that's somewhat in flux. We have sensitive contingency funds, and so we don't want to spend all of those all at once, recognizing that we're still working on the main project for next month. But that very positive, and next month hopefully we'll be starting to plan something about all of us getting out there and doing a little walk, seeing all the great work that was completed. Do it, picture the day that's 113 or something like that. I just think that might be could be possibly. Yeah, 4 a.m. Is that what you said? So that's going well. I have been working with on the budget front. I've been working with our finance team and with our city service. And just to share a little bit of good news, because this council took the courageous action to increase water and sewer rates last year, our revenues for both our water and sewer funds from January 1st through the end of April are over double what they were last. So I think they're very positive that those funds will be in the black this upcoming year. They won't be in a deficit. So I just applaud this council for taking that action last year. It's going to put us in a very good shape moving forward. There's still a long ways to go. We still have a lot of debt to pay off in that fund. We have we need a good health reserve, weather different things that might come up that and those things aren't typically very cheap. They're quite expensive when wells go down and water mains need to be replaced and things happen at the surface water treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant. So but overall still very, very positive. Armando is in Sacramento doing some good work tonight, but I did ask him to put together a little bit of information about that slide from the block party. While Ryan's doing that, there's a little bit of updates with the 5K this past weekend. That was a success in Armando's mind, and also had a block party on May 15th. Had food, hot dogs, Virginia Wood from Friday Night Market. She providing some aguas frescas, photo booth, cotton candy, lots of games, bounce houses. So lots of different good stuff for youth and kids. We had different, and it was collaborative too. So outside of just the city being involved, we had California Health Collaborative, which just recently gave us a presentation. Lindsay Provide, American Red Cross, Tulare County Public Health and Family Services, Tulare County. And then obviously it finished with a movie. California Health Collaborative response. So all that went great, and it was, I would say, it was a great honor presiding over the military banner event. Really appreciate the council support, the support of their staff support, and staff that helped set everything up, and staff put together, put up the actual military banner. So lots of good collaboration on that. It's a big party, so. Some good options. A lot of young people enjoying themselves, and this was there at the South Hall
Palm Terrace.
apartment, like Palm Terrace. Yeah, I wanted to say Palm Terrace, but like Palm Terrace. No, it's, yeah. I don't know if this one or two make it private over. So good stuff. And then lastly, I just will say that I did speak with some of the folks at Lindsay Rotary, and they are interested in making some improvements to Jackson Park. So we're in that. So we're for everyone, right? For everyone. But I want to make sure you heard. So we're going to be meeting again as far as talking specifics, what they might need, what they're interested in growing, what their budget is. And so we got a good initial discussion, and I look forward to seeing what more, because that actually is the Cackle Rotary Park. So they initially had involvement, so they're interested in
And then just for the record, we do have brand new equipment for Cancun Park that's gonna be installed. And when we start phase 2, correct? Phase 3, so, yeah, brand new. I'm not, we have a year for that,
this year.
this year.
That's part of the part where we're planning on getting that installed. Brian,
So we have the playground equipment that's actually part of, that's really part of phase 1 on the back, like the west side, kind of in between Cactus Park and Olive Park. There is some additional playground equipment that is further north, like some swings and a slide. It's just been an issue of lack of funding for replacing that. But we do have, within 50 feet, 50 yards, there's the playground equipment that's going to go in between Cacu and Ball on that Thormax. And we have that equipment already. It's actually out at a city facility. We're just waiting for it to get to that section of construction.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you heard that, like, you have this stuff. But so the old equipment's gonna be there still. Is that right?
If I can just add to that, so there's a
If
map
you
of
don't
the,
mind.
this is the map, this is phase 1 what we're working on. So the additional funding that the city manager's mentioning, we purchased this playground equipment that is gonna go into phase 3, and we will work with the contractor with that extra money that we have to install that. So the old equipment will be gone.
Removed, okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And you're gonna be informed, correct? So we're gonna move on to the consent calendar. Routine items approved in one motion unless an item is pulled for discussion. There will be no separate discussion of these matters unless a request is made, in which event the item will be removed from the consent calendar to be discussed and voted upon by a separate motion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd just like to pull 9.3, that way we could, give sort of clarification on why.
if the council would like to get it
Oh,
either one.
okay.
So the Canon, in general, there's been some challenges with a lot of, payments citywide that have been past due. The Canon's not the only one. Over the last 2 months, since I've been here, there's been, multiple issues, getting payments in on time, whether it's fuel card, whether it's local vendors that we have, possibly an attorney to our right. There's been lots of different, yeah, well, we haven't done a great job. So we're going through a lot of that. In Canada, actually, they have a service with us. They typically, they manage all of our large printers, that we have, and they shut us off. So this is getting us up to date. We had owed since last year, I believe, so it's been multiple months. This is not a usual expense. If we go back to past warrants, normally the dollar amount is much less. But we can still, I haven't looked at the contract, so I'd have to pull that up to see what the contract looks like and time to get back to the, to get back to the public's, comment, but that's where we're at. So this wasn't just a one-time, or this wasn't a regular occurrence as far as how much this was. It was, large accumulation, so we've gotten that one cleared up, so we're up to date, we provided, I think for the last council meeting, we went to multiple printers to print out packets, print out public, because the ink in my machine, in my office ran out, HR's ran out, and nobody's been in that HR office for a while, so, there was some other things, so it was not a fun situation, but we got the shipment last week, and have a wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you have any more? Anything else? Excuse me, do you have anything else you want to discuss?
I didn't want to pull this item, but I just wanted to make sure that it's on record that item 9.4 is to stuff to the for the California minimum wage and also that position to be more attractive, just to make sure that we're following all the laws that are set by our state. So we got to make sure that we're abiding by all the rules set forth by our jurisdictions, which is California. So 9.4 is why we're doing that. That may not be rational.
Want to elaborate a little more?
Yeah, so, and just for clarification, we're not adding any new positions, in this. These are all positions that have been on the books. In fact, we're actually eliminating positions. We're merging the city clerk and the human resources manager position into one. So, just for the sake of making sure that we are getting resources into where it's needed, but recognizing that there can be some efficiencies at the higher level. So, these are just, again, doing some cleanup work, making sure we're in compliance with the state minimum wage laws and making sure that attract the quality candidates. But that's the position.
Thank you. Any more? Clarification or? Good, so do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I must do it.
All those aye?
Aye.
That's worth it.
We're gonna move on to action items, 10.1, the resolution 4515, sending restrictions of use of the SQM settlement funds and transferring funds to interest. This is
Thank you. Here. So tonight's action, last year, city council, went ahead and took the action to place the settlement funds, that were received out of a historic water quality issue, into fund that were set aside for the improvement of well. Those funds, as we continue to be in discussion with, state water resource control board, and, we continue to make progress as far as getting grant funding, and that effort is looking very positive. So because of that, and in preparation for the budget, we're asking to rescind the restrictions on the use of the funds. This is not to say that we're going to start spending it at all by what we're, in addition to unrestricted the funds, we're also asking them to place this into a LAPE account, which would be interest bearing. It will stay in that account until council gives direction as far as how we want to spend that. Staff will come back with the spending plan, either as part of the budget or a separate item, specifically to look at that. And more than likely, depending on the timing of the state grant, will also determine when it comes back. But this is a preliminary step that we take in order to consider being able to utilize this for any other type of purpose. So as of right now, they're only being able for well enough.
Can you expand on the reason why we're unrestricted, why we're confident, why we feel that flexibility, or that we want the flexibility of those funds? I was a big proponent of making sure that well 11 is a priority, and we're not going to go away from that, because this allow for us to have more flexibility to some of that.
Yeah. I think so. One, just as far as process, we've been given we've in discussions with the state. It's been very productive. It continues to be very productive. They've continued to take action as far as that they're going to fund it. I think without them having formal document that has shown that, which they haven't produced, but we have filled out funding agreements. We have gotten indication of the project being fully funded from their standpoint. But again, but we don't have it. It's not necessarily concrete, and the check hasn't been cast. So, which is why I'm still a little bit hesitant to say we're going to use these funds for X, Y, and Z, recognizing that we still may need to use them for well 11. And so, but procedurally, there's nothing that precludes us, even by taking this action, we can't still make sure that well 11 is a priority. We know it's a priority from a standpoint of additional water. It's held up growth of this city. We know that every third year when Bryant Park Canal is drained and dewatered for maintenance purposes, that we struggle to meet the demands of our city. And so we need additional capacity just to make sure that we're providing good quality water for our residents. So it's definitely a priority, but this does not preclude us from still providing those funding. But we do, if we want to do something in the future for a budget standpoint, then we need to be able to have this flexibility.
I'd like to make sure that once you put it into that account, that it comes back to council so that we can decide where we're gonna put the money in. Because like you said, well, we have a big priority. And I just wanna make sure that it goes there if everything is right.
Absolutely.
Council over, is there a time frame of how long it has to stay in there?
No, so in the LAPE account, it's a little bit different than putting it in a money market account or a certificate of deposit, where that will have a standard time frame that you would work with the financial institution, where they'll say here 3 months. A LAPE account is held through the county treasury, and so you get a lot less of an interest rate, so the interest rate's fairly low, but it's a lot more flexible. So it's like having a savings account in your bank where you can access it, but you also get pretty low interest rate. So we'll get some money, but we're not going to But we'll have the flexibility that if we need to use it within 2 to 3 months, then we can absolutely. Correct. Clarification. Yes.
Any more, comments or discussion?
I do want to make it very clear that we're still gonna retain well 11 as the priority for these funds. If we are not able to secure funds to the state, we are going to have the funds to do them. We are going to make sure that well 11 is rehabilitated and it's available. I'm really advocating to have the flexibility because we don't want to have a gap between our planning and our budget. We have a budget and we can plan for the future. We're able to allocate it and actually set the wheels in motion for equipment at a park, for roads, for equipment, for police and fire. So we need to be nimble with what monies we do have and this allows for that. But well, 11 will always be a priority for myself and the entire council. Once again, all of them.
Thank you. At this time, I'll take a public comment for 10.1.
So. Because you answered all my. I just really appreciate it, because I read about the settlement funds, and so I kind of do the flag for me, because we transferred funds before and we got in trouble. And yes, I do want to make sure that I just wanted to say that I just wanted to make sure we stay focused on that it's for infrastructure, that,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Vanilla. Historically, we have had challenge, not really, of having monies moved and then picked away at. And then discovered, oh, wow, we spent it. What do we do with it now? What do we do about that now? And that's the reason we're in this point. Buying equipment that we shouldn't be buying, putting it over here. This, although I really respect the initiative to put the money where it's most flexible, we have no guarantee from the state that could, unless there's a signed contract, and even then, they could say economic demise, cancel the contract. My suggestion to you, council, is to, wait until you get a contract from the state. Signature, check is up to the check, so that's the issue. Then let's move in. If we don't do that, and we put that money somewhere sitting out, I know it's a new day, I know we're gonna be more diligent and what have you, but city's got, repeat behavior going back decades. And so we don't want to put this temptation out there to say, I'm just gonna borrow $500,000 to do, I don't know, pickleball, court, we want to make sure that this goes with this. So I urge you to put a hold on it being transferred anywhere, or it's earmarked for anything other than 1211 until we have a signed contract and really a disbursement from the state government. Thank you.
Do we have any more public comment at this time? And it's good. It's at, it has to come to council again, just right before we transfer it over, doesn't mean we're spending it.
Correct, yeah, so we'll definitely come back, we'll come back to the specific, assuming that we get the grant. Then at that point in time, we will come back to council, provide us a specific spending plan for that. You guys will have input, obviously, as far as similar to what we're going to do with the streets, as far as what the priorities are from the council standpoint. Staff will have some recommendations as far as what we think would be prudent to utilize the funds, and then we'll go from there. There's options as far as putting that in the budget and or putting that as an asterisk of sorts, as far as if this comes through, this is what the plan looks like, type of thing, but only that would be triggered if we get the funds. So we can add safeguards and so that we're not accessing it, so that we're making still in a secured account, that we're not touching it, not having.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now I'm just thinking, so the purpose of transferring the money to be flexible is for flexible for what?
So right now, we can only use it for well 11.
Right.
So assuming we get the funds, which we'll find out soon, then this would have to come back before council regardless. So this item can be tabled, it can be voted on at reading. But even if it was tabled, we still need to come back, guys. We need to rescind that, because it would no longer be, we wouldn't have need for the $6.5 million, to retrofit and upgrade well 11 with treatment, on-site treatment, as well as rehabbing the wells in addition. So from a planning standpoint, the reason it's coming now is to make sure that we just kind of have our ducks in a row. Yeah, this item, this action take place regardless. We think that we're getting close from the state to issuing that, and so we're just getting out of there. But from a timing standpoint, really, there really isn't a whole lot of difference. I know the past city manager had this on the radar months earlier. I was looking at coming before council sooner, and so that's something that I stated and staff looked at. That it wasn't timely, it wasn't an urgency, it wasn't anything as far as necessary to actually move forward sooner than what we are today. But in light of, again, how it's progressed and coming up to the budget, I think timing is appropriate to bring it forward. But obviously that's council's prerogative as far as how you want to feel more comfortable deferring this and not taking action.
I just wanna know what's the benefit. I understand that you said it's a little bit of interest, but I mean, I would go comfortable, like you said, regarding to have the check signed off that, okay, we're gonna get this money. If it's not signed off, that money that it's still gonna go to well 11. So what is the purpose of it going to another, transferring the money if we're not gonna use it for anything else? Or am I not understanding that correctly?
No, I think you are. From the main standpoint, from a staff standpoint, I think the benefit is, as of right now, there's no point of staff doing any planning as far as what it might be able to be used for, because council's been very clear that it can only be used for this one purpose of well 11. So I don't believe it's prudent to do any type of, well, it could be used for this or that or anything else until council says otherwise. So really it's more of a planning tool for us to prepare for next year's upcoming budget. Again, not necessarily, that doesn't mean that we're using it to backfill any holes or anything along those lines, but I don't even feel comfortable really having a discussion as far as what the money could be used for until council says that we have flexibility. Because when council makes a resolution, says how it's going to be spent, that's very clear. That's direction 5. So that's the benefit from staff standpoint. It helps give us some more tools to start getting ahead of what might happen, recognizing that if it doesn't happen, it's still default below. But again,
There's a benefit.
Yes, because I'm
The
still.
benefit is to transfer funds to an interest-bearing general fund. So during that time, it's a little.
So basically, that's what it is. I, okay. I don't want those funds to be used for anything else other than the wells. That's why I'm running for that. What the flexibility word means. If it's not for well 11,
then flexibility shouldn't be. In my eyes, flexibility needs to mean, you think flexibility is, you know what? We have resources for if something breaks down or something an emergency arises, that's the money that we're gonna use. You understand what I'm saying, or am I not?
I do, I do, but I think even then, even if we don't necessarily have a specific resolution that's stating that it can only be like that, I'm hearing council loud and clear. So again, we would not touch the funds, we would not do anything with the funds. We would come back to council as far as once, with the different steps, right? Assuming we get the state funds, then we would come back with the spending plan and say, oh, okay, it's ready to go. Until that time, though, it's still sit. Correct. But to Councilmember Ford's comments, it would account generating some dollars. This is also because it's a settlement fund, even though it was related to water, it's not necessarily enterprise fund. So these are general funds, and so the interest on that can be utilized in any way that we working possibly. We don't know that bill is not cheap.
Yeah. This is a virtual.
I just wanna make this very clear, I can't remember the exact figure, $33 million is the figure, it's close to it. This city is $33 million for the bank, so any interest that can be incurred from our accounts, yes, we're gonna safeguard them, yes, we're using, but any interest that we can from the civil funds is a net, and that doesn't mean we're gonna use them for anything else besides well 11 until we have secured alternative funds. Not, it is the primary source of funds that, and we're gonna create the safeguards and it's gonna be with the counties, so we're gonna have support from them as well. And we operate on very, very, very small. So if we can generate small, interest, income from $6.5 million, it's going to be felt throughout the city. I made the joke about, printer ink, but it literally could cover our printer costs. Like literally, that one account could cover our printer costs, and so we're ready to disperse for well 11 or whatever other plans we have. So that's really what we want to do. We want to plan ahead. We want to be able to think in the future, think as far as a decade. And again, we have to pay these $33 million eventually. And so why not try to gain some interest with the money that we already have and on hand?
And I think when you think of the word flexibility, I would say just think of the benefits that the city's gonna give. You know what I mean? We're not trying to do it for any other reason, only to make Lindsay move forward to the best financial direction we possibly can. I know I can speak for myself, and then on behalf of the council, that's the direction we want to go. So, but be specific. Any more questions? Do we want to table it? Do we want to take a vote? Please vote. Do I have a motion for 10.1?
I'm just gonna reapprove as long as we have the safeguarding in place to for the late account, safeguard the late account.
So I have a motion by Soria. Do you have a second? All those aye, pass 4-0.
And this is gonna be brought right back to council, making changes, just for the record. We're gonna move on to 10.2, intention to levy the annual, billing and settle, public hearing. Action, this is by city manager title.
Where's Kyle? Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is an annual process that we have to do. Our folks in the city, the way that they are billed for refuse, for trash, is they're placed on the property tax. This begins the process to do that. We will come back at our subsequent meetings, to actually have a hearing. So this action tonight simply, sets, resolution actually move forward, taking this action and establish a hearing, which will come back here. Staff report shows, what the dollar amounts, all of the various, individuals that's, part of this process. And this is, again, for instance, that.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah.
For the
Why
question?
does it say potential? That manual thing, regardless?
Well, I think this, because this is the first, the first step in actually, setting the rates will actually happen at the public hearing, which will happen, so you're authorizing us to even have a public.
Okay.
Recommend council.
Yeah, you, and you guys don't have, it's not something, you guys have to do it here if you want to let it go on council. That's why it's the intention. You, it's just wording used on this item, but you guys don't technically have to let it in. You guys can bill them monthly, that's why you guys do it this way, because that's something you guys worked out. We had a discussion before, but, you were not with me. And, so that's why it's stated as an intention too, because it's not something that you have to do. It's to levy for the next year, yes.
Yeah, so this will be on next year's, property bill, so we're already, receiving, the funds in the last, property tax, so this will be moving forward for next year. Because of the county requires way in advance to be able to process it, place anything on their, billing, but this is why, we have to get out in front of it quite a bit. So, I believe, talking with staff, leading up to this, the county's deadline of August 10th, for, getting this to us, and because we have to have multiple meetings, this is the first step. We have to have 2 more meetings in order for it to actually final process that, it's good to get out in front of it sooner rather than later. So if there were some issues, something, still have some wiggle room, prior to the county's deadline.
Any more questions? Public comment for 10.1.2, sorry. Every year.
But anyway, we've been here in spread in 96. Does it sit in the county bank account or?
So it seems like a lot of money. You have to sit there.
And I guess, so every year we can actually get out of it, and then we have to collect the money, from all the residents each month. So we could do that, is that what I'm hearing?
I believe we have to check in on a contract with our, waste hauler, see what the agreement is, based on, what I'm hearing, past agreements, stating that this was, how collection was going to be, done. And the primary advantage of, doing this is a bit more cumbersome from a staff level standpoint. It would be, I think, somewhat easier if we did bill monthly, with water and sewer, rates. However, from a delinquent standpoint, it's a lot more effective as far as making sure that, payments are paid. That's one of the main benefits is that, people typically will pay their property taxes, right? And property owners, in particular, if there's renters around, really make sure that that's paid. And so how they get, whether they're incorporating that into their rentals, or if they're just eating the cost, that's, something that's beneficial. So, You know, the county, they take some time to process, from when property taxes are paid to getting to the cities, but it's not a large amount of time, so once we get it, we still are paying, Mid Valley, our hauler, monthly, and so, so we're either holding on to it in one of our enterprise funds and our refuse fund, and then dispersing it out, and or depending on the cash flow of what that looks like, they also have, sure.
Oh, okay, so they don't give it to us once a year, they continuously give it to you.
Well, property taxes are typically twice a year.
Okay,
So,
so they give it to you.
yeah, so it'll be April and then, December as well. So there could be some other true ups as well, depending on, if property changes hands, and there's supplementals and things like that.
Also, do we have a new accounting, system that we are implementing, a new Tyler technology?
We
Would
are,
that help us, take better records of money that we collect or utilities?
hopefully, but I don't know,
Not there yet.
I don't know if that's going to help with this, I'm not sure I don't think there's really an issue from the standpoint of revenues necessarily. Other than we're just undergoing, so we haven't raised rates in a few years and get down.
So
So I'm not
I was
sure.
just, I was just meaning, if we could, like, keep better record of it, like, so we just have the counties doing it now. Or, if we could do it in-house, we have the new info we can use. Just me,
Are you saying like a new system, like they would pay, how many pay? Instead of pay, so instead of property taxes.
yes, every month, like we use, yeah, it's just,
And we lost money.
I think majority of people weren't paying, so like, and it's unfortunate that,
I know that's why you went to the,
So it did come to, I don't remember when they got, it's been a while.
it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's
so,
been the Mid-Valley Contact approved, it was one of the, of the contract, and that was the reason the collection rate was so low, that, it was either way, someone was gonna take a big loss, either the city was gonna have to make a huge payment of what Mid-Valley billed to Mid-Valley, even though the city hadn't collected the full amount, or Mid-Valley was gonna have to give, only collecting, 30% of what they billed, and that was financially feasible for the night. That's why this was.
That contract amendment happened 2020, 2021, that incorporated organics, collections. So a lot of cities had, contract renewals because initially they weren't, waste haulers weren't required to do anything with organics. So SB 1383 came into place, and so that was part of the language service. There was some other language in addition to it also.
so is the trash bill going up, is that why you're gonna be collecting more? No? Oh,
It's
the same?
Yeah, this is the same thing.
oh, okay.
but did you say that, I think you misunderstand that she said that, because Mid Valley raised their rates. We haven't raised our rates in a while, so
We reflect what we're allowed, so we have to go through a separate process, so, that's why, how we bill and what's associated with that fund, including wear and tear on our streets, other
Alleys.
there's quite a bit, so those are really, what's being impacted, is that those funds aren't necessarily fully captured, in our existing rate structure. We are covering the actual, waste costs, as far as, what it actually costs us to Mid Valley, as far as what they charge, but what we're missing out on is all the additional,
Where and here.
the wear and tear that their trucks, when providing that service, due to our city. So that's where we usually evaluate that, make sure that we're covering those things, because they are quite heavy, and they do put quite a bit of stress on our aging infrastructure.
Commissioner Cass.
And sewer trash, but flat. And the water is not, water, you know, measures and everything, everything takes different bill. So that's the only requirement is the trash, sewer. Is flat, everybody pays.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more public comment for 10.2? Nope, that is closed. Moving on to 10.3.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I can do that. I'm ready to go, yeah. Let me take this back a notch. 10.2, do I have a motion for 10.2? From the intention to this levy.
Move to approve 10.2. I'll second.
All those aye?
Aye.
Pass 4-0.
Now we're gonna move on to 10.3. Award architecture and engineering design services for Lindsay Transit Center to QK, by Ryan.
Well, council, tonight we have before you again the award for architectural engineering services for the Lindsay Transit Center. As you're aware, on January 15th, the city of Lindsay released request for qualifications for architecture and engineering services for the Lindsay Transit Center. The RFQ was advertised through 8 different building exchanges. A notice of inviting bids was published with the Portal Recorder on January 18th and posted on the city of Lindsay's website. The city went through 2 addendums, and the submission deadline was extended to April 1st, 2025. We received 4 submittals by the deadline from Andrew Goodwin Designs, RRM Design Group, Paul Halasian Architects, and QK. There was a 3-member evaluation committee that was put together. The RFQs were reviewed and scored based on qualifications, experience, understanding of the project, and the proposed approach. Based upon that evaluation committee, QK received the highest average score of 90.0. The scoring summary is attached to the packet. Following that evaluation, the city entered into contract negotiations with QK to finalize items in their proposal. The scope of work was divided into 6 separate tasks. Task 1 was a topographical survey. Task 2 was civil and architectural plan preparation. Task 3 was utility coordination. Task 4, landscaping and irrigation design. Task 5 was construction staking, and Task 6 was construction management. As we went through negotiations, we felt that both Task 5 and Task 6, which was the construction staking and management, the cost for those services would largely depend on design elements that came through task order 1 through 4. So through discussions with staff, we negotiated a fee of $790,690 for task 1 through 4. And we decided to renegotiate task 5 and 6 at the time of between about the 60% plans and 90% plans. Once we got a lot of the input from that design, the city would then negotiate the price for task order 5 and 6. The initial proposed rate that they had given for those 2 tasks, I believe, was $457,000. And we feel that our city staff felt that possibly would come down based upon some design element choices that were done in those tasks. This A&E contract supports the development of the Lindsay Transit Center, which will be located at 240 North Mount Vernon. It's part of the long-term vision in partnership with the Tulare County Association of Governments to create a regional transportation hub. The site is planned to include a transit facility, future rail integration, and adjacent retail, food, and office space, possibly at a proposed later phase. For the fiscal impact, the project is funded through Measure R special funds administered by PCAG. There is no anticipated impact to the city's general fund. So, are there any questions? No questions, public comment.
I'll take a public comment for 10.3. Public comment is approved at this time. Do you have a motion for 10.3?
Motion. Is that the?
I think the council could probably, I think we can come up with some options. The Soria trans,
I like it, I like it.
I'm just saying,
Anyway, I'll second. 10.3.
all those I
Aye.
pass 4-0.
Well, Cross Valley, or something like that. Well, yeah, Cross Valley Loop is, so that's the light rail system, for the Huron, which is why this station is located where it's on the rail. So if that ever does, have a passenger rail on that railway, then in addition to getting buses, right, then the immediate buses, but later on, if that happens, and we'll be around there, moving on.
All right, so let's move on for 10.4. Welcome, Ava. Resolution number 2517, ordering the preparation of engineers report for landscape and lighting district for the school year of 2025 and 2026.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Chief Council. This is the first process, it's a routine item that this has been doing for the last almost 30 years. Some of the questions, that you were asking in the prior to, placing the revenues into the thresholds, I think I'm gonna be able to answer and give you more clarification because they both go, hand in hand, and we have to do the middle together. So, just for, our new council members, I would like to give you a little bit of history of what the landscape and lighting assessments are. So what is the landscape and lighting assessment district? Those districts are assessments, that are set by the conditions of approval when a new project comes in. So if the developer proposes a new subdivision and the city comments on what kind of, beautification needs to surround this property, and therefore the residents are responsible for paying for that, just the residents on that neighborhood. So how are they created? Just like I mentioned, these are through the conditions of approval of the subdivision maps once it comes to council. In how this is collected, it goes through to Larry County tax roll. This is an example of the engineer's report that will be coming to council for each of the assessments. We first have the budgeted, what was approved last fiscal year, and then on the middle column, we have what was spent this year. Therefore, that's how we project how much is needed for the next fiscal year. There's a total of 8 landscape and lighting assessment districts throughout the city, and here's the map of where they are located. What are the steps? There's a total of 4 steps, just like the city manager mentioned. Step 1 is tonight, ordering the preparation of the initial assessments. Step 2 will be the following council meeting. There will be 2 other resolutions coming before you. Resolution B, it will be accepting the preliminary assessment numbers presented that night. And number C, it will be declaring the intention to collect. Then we will send letters to all the residents notifying them of the proposed changes, assessments. And you, at that point on resolution C, you will set the public hearing. Then we will publish it on the newspaper. And then on step 4, June 24, we will come back. And that's when the resolution will be in, not, you already approved the intention to, divide the assessments. So now it's that continuance, ordering the continuation of the assessments for the upcoming fiscal year. And like Kyler mentioned, this is a very, we have to follow the steps. We do have to the council meetings in July built in as a, as a cushion in case something were to happen and we needed to postpone it. We do have those too, because everything needs to be approved before the deadline, and we have to prepare all the documents to submit by August 10th. So with that, I will recommend that, council takes consideration of council resolution 2517, ordering the engineer to start the process so we can come back with the assessments. I'll be happy to ask any questions. Do you have any questions?
I just want to make sure that I understood this correctly because I had a conversation. For city manager, so the fees might go up for some, but not for all, it's just on what is necessary, correct? So this is what that guidance.
Yes. So, when the districts were formed, the time they were formed, there was a study done that normally the developers prepare it and they submit it and they set a maximum of how much we're allowed to collect. So that number fluctuates depending on the expenditure. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up, but we can never exceed that number. And when we come back in the next meeting, you will see a chart where I say what's the maximum allowed and then how much are we proposing. So if we propose to increase, you cannot approve it. We have to go through a proposition 218 because that's the process to go. Just because we're starting so late, I know there was a conversations happening that there was some of the districts that were upside down, but we're starting very late. We will come back with, options for council of how we would like to proceed for the upcoming year. Questions?
I'm not too sure if I'm understanding, like, who started the process, like? The city?
When I requested to the finance director, the numbers, they were not given. And then last week, staff, was able to prepare those documents for me, so.
Well, I'd like to clarify, because I think there's, I think the tardiness of evaluating is really on the 218 side of things. So we're on time as far as getting this presented with under the existing rate structure that council approved years ago. And so that isn't necessarily an issue, recognizing that there is a defined area and charge within that rate structure that was already approved and passed 218. But in order to evaluate and to look at additional dollars, if there are some of these neighborhoods and areas, these lighting and landscape districts, increase that, we would have to go to the full and establish a dual rate study to make sure that we actually do need the dollars, what that's looking like. And so I don't know that there's one, we haven't begun that process. It'll take months to go through that. So we're not prepared and ready to do that for this upcoming year. Again, just like the county, we have to do that, and that should have taken place last fall, right? So at the same time that the council was looking at water and sewer rates, that's when would have been an appropriate time for it. So that will be something that we'll look forward to, in the upcoming months. This is just to utilize.
All right, thank you. I'll take a public comment for 10.4. No public comment, 10.4 is closed. Do I have a motion to 10.4?
Before the motion, I want to make sure that Lindsay as a city has always fallen behind. So water, sewer, trash, lighting, landscaping, and if we want to experience more prosperity in our town, to think ahead. And sometimes that requires raising the maximum that we can charge on some of the landscaping items, some of our neighborhoods. Recognizing that each neighborhood is unique, some are higher in property tax value, so might collect more from some neighborhoods. Some are going to be left alone, they might be older, they might be more simple, but we need to think ahead. That's why Prop 218 is something that we can consider August and September, so we can come back for the next fiscal year, 26, 27. So really think ahead, and into the future, we want nice curb appeal for all our neighborhoods. So if you want that, you have to provide it now and have that in mind to our staff back to this.
Thank you.
And if you, in the staff report, the map that shows the areas where there actually are lighting and landscape districts. It's primarily the newer developments, so this is not something that the city historically utilized decades and decades ago, so it's primarily the newer developments that happened in the last 20, 25 years or so. I'd say roughly is where districts are at.
Do we have a motion for 10.4?
Motion, I motion.
I'll second.
All those aye?
Aye.
Pass forward.
Moving on to presentation items, 11.1, street infrastructure study session, establishing repair and improvement priorities at NEPA.
Thank you. So before you, if you have a packet of my presentation, if you wanted to follow along. So, Lindsay does this, every year. The last time we did a street study session was, done in 2022, 2023. So we're well overdue. So thank you, Tyler, for bringing this up. Just to give a little bit of background for new council members, what makes the street funds? There's different funds, throughout the budget, and they're all the 200 numbers. 200 fund is the street improvement fund, that comes every time someone pays their utility bill, a portion of their bill goes and, gets a transfer to the 200 fund. 261 through 266, there are allocations through from the gas tax. 266 is the local transportation funds that comes through TCAP. And there's also another portion on 263 that we do have is the local Metro R, Tulare County Metro R, and we have some numbers or some budget allocated to us, and I'll go over that. And then the last one is 260 fund is the SB1 road and maintenance rehab. Once council selects on streets, we will be coming back with the resolution where council will determine where where the SB1 funds go to, because they're very restricted and we have to submit this resolution.
Can we already do that?
It has to be done every year.
Okay.
So
So
if
if we've already approved it and it hasn't been done.
we would reallocate it. So just as a summary of the 200 funds, how much money we have. As of, last Wednesday, May 25th, the city has a cash balance of $6.7 million. There is a projected revenue, for the new fiscal year of $1.7 million or so. And, just to go a little bit more into the 200 street fund of how that came about. That started back in 2004. There was a study done of how the water, the sewer, and the refuse enterprise funds impacted the streets. So every time a trash truck passes by the street, how much should we charge them for it? Because we're installing pipelines, there's wear and tear with the settling of the pipes. Every time there's a leakage, there's some repairs done. So that study was performed in 2004, and you can see the allocation that at the time it was presented to council and approved. It was roughly 23.6% of each of the enterprise funds. And that, in the 17 years I was here, that number varied from 800,000 to 1.2. There was a year that we got really good revenue up to 1.4 million. So it depends on what the economy is doing, and that's how much money is coming in. So because the city got audited by the state, these studies are supposed to be redone every 5 years. So it was long overdue. So the state ordered the city to redo another study. And this was performed in June of 2022. With this new study, it set new rates of how much each fund is allowed to be charged. So that 23.6% no longer applies. And this got incorporated with the new water and sewer rates that were passed and implemented this year in January 2025. So for water, a maximum charge of $88,000, sanitary sewer $69,000, In solid waste, which is your refuse department, that's $500,000. And I mean, it makes sense. The trash trucks pass the streets, alleys every single day. Whereas the water, yeah, you might have a water leak, but it's bare minimum to the trash trucks. And then the weight of those trucks of how much it has increased since 2004. Unfortunately, just how the city manager mentioned, your refuse department is currently making the expenditures. And it was determined at the time that we would just concentrate on water and sewer rates. So you're losing that $500,000 coming into your street fund. So from $1 million to an approximate $600,000 to now $158,000. So one of the things that the council should consider is looking into the refuse department again. 263, gas tax from the state comes in, and also the city has Metro R allocations. So Metro R has three different pots of money. The first category is for bike and pedestrian projects. Normally, the last project we did, that's how we used those funds we used to keep in the Vista. We drew like $700,000. So last time I checked with TCAC, we had approximately $1.5 million, but that was over a year ago. So I'm sure that account has been finished. We just have to check. So I'm just saying that we have roughly $1.5 to $2 million. Category 2 is the transit center project. Through Metro R, we have an allocated funding of $3 million. That's how we purchased the property, where the old packing house was, $250,000. That's how we pay for the demolition and the clearing of the site. And now the council approved the design of the transit center. That's how it's going to be paid. And we would have to come back with you, to you with the supplemental agreement so we can present it to TCAC for $790,000. So that leaves a total Metro R money of $1.7 million. But then the city received a grant, a transit grant through the state because of the Valley Corridor grant that was submitted. And we have roughly $6.5 million for construction. So that would give you a total available construction funding of $8.2 million. And the last category for Metro R is regional projects, which Lindsay does not have one. There was a conversations at a time that with the realignment of Highway 65, that could potentially be one. But as far as I know. So for this conversation for streets, we will focus on category 1 because that we can use that money for our streets. In 2020, the city did an evaluation of all of the streets. So we came up with a grading system of that way we knew what kind of streets needed what kind of treatment. So your 10 through 9 is your the streets that you have rehabbed in the last 2 to 3 years. Everything is good, nothing is needed. Then once you rehab a street and if you have more than 5 years, that's when you start, I call it, you need to start applying lotion. So it doesn't crack. So that's your exploratory seals projects. And those are category 8, 7 in the chart. And then you get into a little bit more of the 10 to 15 years of wear and tear. And those are cave seals or there's different type of seals, but that's a category for 6 and 5 and 4.
Dana?
Mhm.
I have a question on the funding that we have received. Is there a timeline for that?
For which one?
For the funding?
For the grant?
For the grant.
I'm sure there is. I just don't remember.
So if we don't use it, we use it?
I'm sure there's just like how the olive oil, we can request an extension because this was a multi-year. If I remember correctly, it was like a 5-year grant because it wasn't just Lindsay. It was an effort to Tulare County and Kern County.
Yeah, farmers will utilize the same funding from through Metro R and Cross Valley for their transit center. So I know that what you guys just took action on the design of the transit center, that was really important. TCAG has been encouraging staff to move forward with that because there are some timelines. I'll get back to you as far as timeline. Yes, they want us to spend the money sooner rather than later. So, tonight's action. Well, I'll get.
So, sorry, let's. The street network category, so that's the map that we use, so we know what kind of, rehabilitation or what kind of treatment we would have to do on the streets. Another thing that we do take into consideration is a pedestrian study. There's some gaps within the city, and one of the requirements for Metro R is, in order for us to access that money, we have to identify the project as a priority. So back in 2022, there was a study done and it rated all of the streets, it identified all of the gaps within the city, and it created that map, and that got submitted to TCAC and it got approved. So if we want to deviate from any of the streets, that's totally doable, we just have to submit a request, to TCAC so we can use Metro R funding for our streets. And this is just, one of the sections, how it identifies on the top priority at the time, and it just estimates of how much it was needed to install curb cut and sidewalk. The other, thing that we have to take into consideration when,
Just before we go back, just for clarification, so, because we have our next presentation is on sidewalks in particular. So that particular study, which was shown highlights in that, those were specifically for, streets that do not currently have sidewalks.
correct,
So what we're gonna be talking about in this minutes, we'll be looking at primarily focusing on utilizing TCAC funds to rehab existing sidewalks. And then depending on whether or not there's any leftover funds, then identifying some of these areas as far as where we can, prioritize any streets, that don't have sidewalks, but the priority would be for existing sidewalks.
Council, I'm sorry, just to point out, you do have a copy of the report that she's referring to. I put those on the dais. It's about 4 or 5 pages into mine. So if you have questions about that, you have the full copy.
On the project, wasn't Westwood one of the main ones? I don't see that in the.
it's coming, it's on my presentation.
Oh, it's.
Yeah, you'll get there.
I'm like, that was priority.
Oh, your
That
name is
was
next
the-
to it too. Okay, so, another item to, bring up to your attention is, the infrastructure needs. So it's not just about repairing the street. What do we need to repair in order to have a long-lasting street? Council's aware of the water feasibility study that was presented, back in January 2023. It identified the $40 million in infrastructure needs. It has a map, and it identifies all of the pipelines that need immediate repair. So just whenever selecting streets, just refer back to that map, because that would mean that it's not just repairing the street, we would have to fix the underground before we can fix the street, and that will just increase the amount of money. So the streets list from previous council, when we go through the exercise, we come up with a list, and I take voting from council, and then we rate the streets. And last council, that was the priority list that they selected. Some of the streets have been completed, like Linda Vista, Tulare Road and Foothill, which you just accepted the notice of completion tonight. Sycamore Street, we did Foothill from Tulare to Fairview, we did Valencia Street from Harvard to Foothill, and so forth. There was one of the streets that was identified as a priority, but that's a county road, and council decided not to proceed with that. And then you have the ones in greens that it was identified as a set of priorities, and Westwood is included in that. And I will talk about that. So in September 26, 2023, that's when we did the street study session, the council members will recall. We drove the streets, you and I, that's how we came up with your street list. I know there was a few of us that we went on the ride and just started making notes. So with, that night, council set two sets of priority, two projects. The street package one, we call it various roads, and it included the west side of town, which is Westwood from the roundabout to Tulare, Fresno Street from Highway 65 to Westmore, and then the neighborhood of Central, Van Ness, and all of those streets are much needed. So that was the street package number one, and then the street package number two, Tulare Woodville Rehabilitation Project. When there was a lot of uncertainty of how much money we had on the funds, I came before you and I asked you to select, okay, out of package one, package two, this is the monies we have, which one do you want to do? Obviously, council selected street package two, to Larry Woodville because of the high school, and we just completed that. So we're done with that project. So tonight, I'm gonna be asking council, to get different input, and one of the things that I would like to consider, for you to consider is that street package two, the city already made an investment to enter into a contract with Provost and Pritchard. They're your design engineer for this project. We have completed 60% plans. And when we were going through the plan preparation and they did the survey, there was a lot of right-of-way issues. And that was one of the reasons why I suggested that that project be put on hold, because we would have to go after acquiring right-of-way. And that normally takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So, there's your updated, estimated, engineer's estimate for this big package. Just to remember, Van Ness Central, they're very wide streets, they're very old curbing gutter will have to be removed. I know that at the time when we presented, one of the concerns were lighting, but lighting, there's no infrastructure. So we did not take into consideration infrastructure because we had an estimate of about $2 million just for street lights. So we did not include that in this number. So with that, just a reminder of how much money we possibly have. Of course, we have to be moving very carefully. Once we have authorization and confirmation that that's the money that we do have, that's when we can, go and start putting the project and enter into contracts. But normally to go into contracts is about a year from today if we were to give direction. So we have time. So as part of the recommended actions, for the next meeting, I would like, council to consider, package two. Would you like to continue with this package? That will be, option one. Recommendation number two is, council has never set a budget for streets. And what I mean by that is there's different categories. There's your seal projects and your Cape Seal projects. Those are your maintenance projects. Once you repair to Larry in front of the high school, every 5 years you have to be adding lotion, otherwise it's going to start cracking. So those are your seal projects. And I'm recommending that council considers about 50% of your total budget, whatever the budget is, about 15%. And then we get into the Cape Seals, fiber seals projects. We need to increase a little more because we do have a lot of streets that need a little more maintenance. And I call it a foundation. You need a little bit more thickness so you can protect your street from cracking. And of course, your last ones are the ones that we haven't done any work for the last 30 years. So that's going to be the majority of your budget. So I'm recommending it 60%, but this is just a recommendation. Council can come back next council meeting and say, no, this is the numbers I want. That way, when their staff is working on the budget, we can set those numbers. So just to give you an example, if we do have $10 million, just assuming that's our budget, roughly the seal projects will get $1.5 million, the fiber seals $2.5 million, and the rehabilitation projects $6 million. Of course, that can always change if we go out to bid package number two and the number comes back at 7 million, council has the authority to move from the seal projects into the rehab so we can complete at least that. So you would always have that flexibility.
Do you have a list of all the roads that we maintenance?
I do. I don't have it tonight, but I do.
Okay.
So seal projects and fiber seal projects, that has to be at the staff discretion, because we're the ones that keep track on how, when was the last time we did any type of work? And if we come, bring back to council the list is humongous, and those are maintenance projects. So I'm recommending that those, budget numbers get allocated per staff recommendation, based on what they know that they have done, or each street has received as the last treatment. And of course, the $6 million, I want the council would always set as a priority list, and then we're going to the CA. So, you have 4. You, in each of your package, you have that slide. The ones, the regular lighting, is the ones from the previous council list that we have not done. And the ones in bold, and I tell it, is the ones that I added based on what I know that city services receives the most complaints. And I gave a copy to Marshall, because I know Marshall will be very upset if I don't allow him to get his opinion on it, because I'm sure he has his own list. So if you can take time, I gave you a oversized map, so you can get a reference of what streets you would like to get fixed. So this is a 1 to 5 scale rating, and number 1 being the not so urgent, and number 5 being the extremely urgent. So if you can go through it. Westwood is in package number 2. So that will be consideration number 1. Consideration number 2 is upsetting budgets, and consideration number 3 is adding more lists. In case we have more money. Yeah. Normally the city has to have it 5 years.
I know, talking to the community, like, they're really concerned about that Westwood. I mean, if you have to drive your car with caution, it's dangerous. I know that Central one is really dangerous, so I know, talking to the community, that area needs to be rehabilitated, yes.
Yeah. And we do need,
But-
we love those. Well, we need to know exactly a rate when to get it.
So like I said, this is just recommendation action items, not to come back to you, in another time. But those are the 3 items that I went over. Number 1, do you want us to proceed with package number 2, which includes Westwood and the entire neighborhood? Focusing on that. Number 2, setting a budget, and number 3 is start creating your wish list. Once, if council decides to give us the green light on package number 2, what do we focus next?
So if council is, has any feedback now, we'd be happy to take down those notes and receive any feedback. I'm definitely hearing that Westwood Central, those are priority, Van Ness, that whole website around Jefferson School, that is a priority. That it sounds like we want staff to continue to move forward with rehabbing that area. But as you're looking at the list, whether it's now or at the next council meeting or anywhere in between, then feel free to look at some other ones. So those will be the priority, and I think based on the cost, we can probably allocate funds for those. But realistically, there's probably not a whole lot more outside of those that will get done in this upcoming cycle. But again, I think to Neva's point, it's always being prepared in case there's additional grant funding. If we have things that are already identified, that we've said these are priorities, that if we do get additional funds, if PCAG comes through with additional money, if the state does, if the feds do, whoever does, then we will be ready to jump on that next project. We don't have to necessarily reevaluate that. So that's part of it.
But it's maintenance. for that
Correct.
money.
That's true.
Money would be maintenance.
Right.
Correct. Something that 2 years ago,
Great.
and then, when it's there.
So, staff would love to hear any additional comments from council, or if there is, there's no action tonight, just give that.
Yeah, even for, item number 1, council already approved that package. If council were to give us guidance today that, that's the direction you guys want to proceed with, I will contact Paulson Pritchard get updated numbers and start going through them.
Yeah, but you guys are down.
Yes, we're at 50%.
Yeah, yes, so. Makes sense.
Any public comment?
Um. I knew this, honestly. There,
I know you do.
okay. Now that we're talking about street, is there? It's probably a special, but is there any way to do anything about the railroads? The railroad tracks are so bad on Swearing Road.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can speak with them, it's not, the railroads are unique, individual, they have a lot of rights and authority. But, there was a request to the county on, that rail line, in particular, Sound Valley Railroad.
Yeah.
That they are looking to make improvements, to that particular rail line, so that, like, so, if and when, they do receive funding, then we'll definitely look to incorporate improvements from that section across it.
It's pretty much on them then, everything.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, concerns? Or public comment?
Okay, you know, to the question about the railroad. Several months ago, I brought it to your attention. That I stopped to help somebody on Joy Road in a wheelchair to cross railroad tracks because they got stuck. 6 holes. I was told that they were going to contact the road, whoever. Today, it remains the same. So I just wanted to let you know, it's an ADA issue, not just a question. Somebody's trying to cross the road. I do volunteer work for the Rose Weapon Foundation. Recently, I meeting asked questions were that trouble the community the most. There were 2 things. One is road conditions and lighting conditions. They fear to be out because it is like this in the winter. It's dark and it's not really safe for them. In the last couple minutes, one thing about this topic was there was a statement made that when they're going to be doing roads and sidewalks, which other infrastructure issues, such as water, pipe. But it was my understanding that the 5% increase that we had was to address exactly the water. Was I wrong about that? Comment?
I have to get back to you, I'm not clear as far as those questions, but we can.
Well, the
talk about
question is
that.
basically this. When they sold the idea of 5% more, which is great, no problem. Then it was to improve infrastructure for the water system. And that included the water treatment plant as well as piping that goes along the road. I just want to know if that was true or not true.
I think what he's saying is like the revenue of what's supposed to go to.
It is, so, and, you know, we've been in a deficit in addition to that, so not only moving forward, getting us out of the hole, but then also looking forward as far as all the different, I think in David's presentation, one of the slides showed the various needs and as far as from water capacity, from a pressure standpoint, different color coding, small, but those are all identified as far as different needs throughout the city as far as.
So in the interim, the 5% is not going to be used for infrastructure development, it's going to be used for offsetting other expenses?
No.
No? Okay. Good about that.
I don't know that we haven't approved the budget for this upcoming year, so that would be part of
What would be part of the budget? We are on
the
that.
water rates in general, so
Well,
the
we-
entire operation.
And Logan,
That's comments, not
Sorry.
questions.
And maybe just a thought. In the referendum, where we said we're gonna increase by 5%. The 5% clearly said for infrastructure improvement, not to offset debt. And I want to stay true to our word.
Go ahead, Leah. Any more questions, concerns?
Lindsay once was a city full of packing houses. Had all the packing houses. All, and a lot of the reason why was excessive, but at the roads, at the best roads. And so it's important that we focus on that, and then we make that friendly for the individuals and the equipment, and that everything comes on trucks. So I just want to make sure that the council and the staff knows that trucks are gonna come whether we like it or not, right? And the more friendly we are to that, the more individuals might consider investing in our city. So I just wanna make sure that, you know, Harvard and yes, is a priority, making sure that we maintain that relationship and the other areas of commercial opportunities like PCI, these areas that we want to retain these employers. A lot of employees work in our city, so we want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. Right? Yes, our residents deserve good streets and good lighting, good infrastructure, but we also need to have places for them to work and these businesses like and when it's easy to access and the equipment that people have at these important locations. So I just want council to keep that in mind as we're preparing to plan for the future. We want to make sure that we attract this.
Well, as long as it's the truck, are using the truck route and not going through the city and other stuff, because that is very good. So just saying, as long as it's the truck routes, that's perfect.
And you know, as well, that once construction starts, then that's when we find out where the infrastructure is like.
Correct. So not only identifying, we have all these maps and based on what we know and what somebody remembers from 20 years ago, but yeah, not until we open up the streets, that's when we really find the truth. And just to expand on that, just to give an example of how we allocate funds for streets, if we were to choose Honolulu, right in front of City Hall, and there is we know that the water pipeline needs to be paid, needs to be replaced, then the water fund is gonna pay for that pipeline with the increase. With the new rates coming in just in January of this year, it's gonna take some time to recover, break even, and then the following year, we're gonna start building reserves. We do not have identified projects until year 3, because there is a lot of catching up to do. So in 3 years, we're gonna start having reserves so we can start allocating it to all of this streets projects. So each of the funds can pay for whatever they need.
Okay, but is it safe to say that we have maps to like where streets are being fixed and the infrastructure, what's being done below that, so that the next person that comes along knows what's going on besides going off of someone, when you just stated regarding, what they know, what they remember, we have a map, so again, so when that person leaves,
No, the city does not.
we don't.
Yeah, so
You
here.
have Marshall.
And you have some.
That's the
No, because the city never purchases software to keep track of that, and nowadays we use GIS. That's a service that, it's expensive, about $50,000 per year to maintain a system for a city. That's how much would they pay for theirs. But
Well,
And that's even-
I'm assuming there can be, I'm sorry to cut you off, a spreadsheet. I understand the system, and it's a lot easier, and it's great with all the software, but we don't have the money for that. It's simply just writing it down on a spreadsheet, putting it,
I can tell you what I did when I was here. Because we didn't have any of that, I used Google Earth. And every time we get a street, I color coded it, and that's what this maps got created. In that file, I have it with me, and I tried, Mauricio Juan, but I gave it to Mauricio as well, so he can start adding their stuff, yeah.
See, easy, you didn't need that expensive system.
Yeah.
Right,
I just hope that IT remembers that and transfers those files.
no, noted.
Okay, thank you, Neva. We're good to go, this is a little warning here, so. Then move on to 11.2 sidewalk repair planning and request for active transportation funds and parking studies. I read curb compliance within by Ryan.
Pull this up. It's gonna be very brief. I can read the room. Okay, so a lot of my information ties into what Neva just presented. Again, in my packet, you guys have that report that she was talking about. What I wanted to talk to you guys about today is updating this. A lot of the, on I think it's page 3, is it has the locations that are missing curb and gutter, things like that. We also have a lot of locations around town that just need rehabilitation. We went through and walked primarily the downtown. We located 28 different sidewalk locations in the downtown kind of sphere that we felt could use some rehabilitation. I'm going to show you some pictures of that in just a minute. In this presentation, I'm also going to talk about, it's been brought up in council before with the daylight law of 2025. So it's AB 413, and it basically is on 20 feet of any crosswalk has to be basically painted red, keep clear vision for schools and things like that. So that's something that we're looking at updating with this and seeking some grant funding. So improve curb markings near schools for student safety, and then also align with the Western Corridor plan. So again, we have 28 sites with damaged or hazardous sidewalks. Whenever we touch a sidewalk like this, we need to make sure that it's ADA compliant. We just in the downtown area, we identified at these 20 locations about 740 square feet worth of rehab that we suggest doing based on a kind of an estimate of about $25 a square foot. The cost for this rehab in the downtown area would be about $18,500. On the funding source, we're kind of competing for a lot of the same monies that kind of Neva just talked about. We've got Measure R, Mike and Ted. There's a funding opportunity with TCAG for active transportation funds. That's something that we would potentially go after. So really, as I talk about this stuff, we need to kind of work with Neva as council sets priorities, because the same kind of pool of funds that maybe would address curb, gutter, sidewalk on Westwood would be maybe the same pot of money that we would have for these other rehabilitation ones. As we're going through, the report that was done, that was talked about earlier, was done by a consultant. The stuff that we've been doing now is in-house. And so we're continuing to look through the city to where there's other opportunities to rehab. Mr. Villanueva talked earlier about one over at like Tulare and just west of Harvard where the railroad tracks are. That's something that we could possibly try to address. Again, when it's a railroad track, we're very limited on what we can actually do. We would have to get with the railroad because we have issues of we can't touch their line. So really, maybe we do a partnership with them, but it's not something that we can just snap our fingers at the city and just go fix, because again, it does touch those rail lines. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of kind of what I'm talking about. A lot of these issues on the sidewalk in the downtown area are related to the tree wells. You can see there you've got cracking on the sidewalk. You've got where the tree roots are lifting the planters. You've got changes in elevation because of the tree roots. So I'll just go through these pretty quick. It's kind of a lot of the same. You can see some places are worse than others. This is one that I believe this photo is on, I think, Mirage, in front of one of the businesses. You you've got kind of a separation there that is an issue. Same thing here. So again, what we're looking to do, the rehabilitation on downtown, again, you have a list in this packet that really covered areas that had no curb and gutter. This is more, where can we spend these funds to kind of spot fix issues? We recently did a spot fix over at Sweetbriar and Samoa on the southeast corner, over by the market. There was a sink that was there. We were able to get someone out there, and if you've seen it now, before it was not ADA compliant. So when that was put in, I think it was like 2008, 7, something around those lines. When it was put in, it was not fully ADA compliant. It is now. So again, that's something that, you know, we would address at each one of those locations. So moving on, we're gonna seek grant funding for a traffic and parking safety study. So again, to comply with California daylighting law, the AB 413. The school district has also reached out, and due to where, you know, buses park and all the traffic in the morning, the school has kind of a wish list of, they want red curb, you know, in areas that surround different school sites. In the past, we've kind of done that in-house, but that's something that really should be done through a parking study. It affects, you know, neighbors. You could have a house next door and now you're painting it red in front of their house. So we want to mitigate those while still staying compliant with, again, AB 13, and then also to update drop-off zones and crosswalk visibility. So the other thing that we were kind of looking at is that West Hermosa corridor as it comes in. We're gonna kind of update this package as it relates to class 4 separated bike lanes, high visibility crosswalks and pedestrian lighting, sidewalk curb ramp, and bike lane installations. So our recommended action is we're going to try to solicit a little bit of input from council as to what you guys want to do. Then I would work with NABA and really trying to institute council's direction as to, look, we really want to do Westwood. You know, we would use some of those Measure R bike and lane funds for the sidewalks, but let's say we do have a chunk that's left over. You know, is that something that we could do with the rehabilitation? It would also, if you direct staff to apply for those active transportation grant funds and look at other grant funding, there's the HISP, the highway. Yeah, it's highway something. It's highway something safety plan. So that's one of the things that we've already kind of looked at it possibly pursuing. So if that's council's direction, and then again, seeing what money is left over after kind of the council's priority list, and see about prioritizing implementation of Hermosa corporate plan elements. And that's all I have for my presentation. You have a copy of my PowerPoint. It's got the photos in there. And again, a lot of my stuff ties into that existing 2022 plan. We made a copy of that. And so just kind of solicit some input from council on what your direction is.
Thank you, Ryan.
I definitely think that we need to work. We provide safe environments for drop-off dogs, especially maybe Jefferson, some of these tight schools that Harvard. I still consider it, but those schools are tight neighborhoods. So we need to make sure that we have those records identified. And, you know, we do our best to inform our residents not to park there, especially during the peak traffic hours of the But yeah, definitely traffic for bikes as well. It'd be nice to have a bike lane out there. Right now we're kind of shared the audience, and so I know here it's something that I really think that's.
Thank you. I'll take public comment on this one. Public comment is closed.
So, again, if there's any additional feedback, if you wanna think about it, I think, you know, what staff's recommending, that we look at is one, rehab, partnering with, you know, school district, doing some other safety improvements from a pedestrian standpoint. And then the last priority, which, we will have funding for, and in David's previous report, actually, listed, I don't know what page number, it is, but there's a list of all the potential costs from that pedestrian or new sidewalk project and looking through those. So I might, recommend you guys looking at that page and seeing which one of those are priorities that if you had to pick a few of those, which ones would you want to have sidewalks on those streets? So those are all streets that don't have sidewalk. I can get you a page to show you.
Thank you. Request for future items? Do we need to? Okay. We got homework to do though. And we're gonna go on to closed session, so you're more than welcome to stay, and you're more than welcome to enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
He said that
And a hot.
Yeah. Nothing to report, right?
Nothing to report, Dave.
At this time, there's nothing to report, the meeting is adjourned.